Hello everyone, welcome back to this another hands-on session domain name server. So today I'm going to discuss about domain name server using packet tracer as well as hands-on scenario. I'm going to show you the free domain service providers and how you can redirect your request from service provider to specific web application server, right? So please subscribe this channel to get update on upcoming hands-on sessions of AWS Cloud platform, and also you will learn about some networking hands-on session as well. So basically, DNS is nothing but domain name system. So DNS server resolve the host name into the IP addresses, right? So every operating system have a default DNS entry in a host file that is called local address along with the 127.0.0.1, right? So either you type in a browser 127.0.0.1 that also redirect to your local host, or you type simple local host in a character value, you will be also redirected on a same. We can say nowadays you are not limited to access the list of websites, right? You are accessing so many different websites every day. So if you want to access the website, different websites every time, you have to insert that entry into your host file first, right? So instead of that, right, to manage the host file manually and it is very tedious task, right? And we can say it's not feasible to solve the or map the name with the IP address, right? So that's why the DNS concept come into the picture. So for example, this is the user, right? When you type whatever domain name www.xyz.com, right? Your and this is the actually application layer protocol, right? So when you type this, right, your first request, or we can say this is host name, right? Host name. So when you type this, right, your first request goes to the application layer, or we can say this request is forwarded into the first application layer. So application layer have a one file transfer client, right? It's called file transfer client, right? And this file transfer client forward this host name to the DNS client, right? DNS client. So remember one thing, guys, DNS is also client server based application, right? So your host name is forwarded to the DNS client. DNS client make a query to DNS server, right? So here is a DNS server. So this server have a mapping of host to IP address, right? So it will find respective IP address of your host name, and it revert back to the DNS client, right? And same way DNS client forwarded to the file transfer client, right? And file transfer client have a now IP address, and it is forwarded to the transport layer, right? So this is simple flow, right? Now the question is that when you type this host name, how your request is forwarded to DNS server, and for that in your machine by default two addresses is also you have to insert, right? One is the default gateway, another one is a DNS, right? So that we also see in the upcoming scenario, right? So I have a three scenario, and you will learn the DNS setup in a local area network using packet tracer, DNS setup in a wide area network, or you can say two different network with the help of packet tracer, and live scenario that is DNS setup in a real environment using Freenom. This is the DNS service provider, right? Same like GoDaddy and Cloudflare, right? And AWS Route 53, where I have a host one server, and where this is the Route 53 actually DNS service of AWS Cloud Platform. And over here on AWS Cloud also I have create one server, and where I have deployed my web application, right? So let's see one by one. So here you can see this is the topology, right? So basically domain name server resolve the host name into the IP address. So as I have told you, when you type www.xyz.com, right? So it will ultimately resolve, or it will find the DNS will find the IP address of the respective domain, right? So let's start first of all discussing this point. So here you can see this is the DNS server, right? And these are the like users of this campus, and whenever you type for example any type of domain in your browser, your request will be redirected to this server, and this server will give you the web page. Okay, clear? So let's see on a real environment. So here is the topology I have already prepared, because I would like to show you the main part of this tutorial is the real environment. So I want to add the IP addresses of all this. So go to that 192.168.1.2, right? This is 1.1, 192.168.1.1, 192.168.1.3, 192.168.1.4, and this is the server which we have to configure. So in my earlier tutorial I have shown you the FTP scenario. Now we are going to configure the DNS. So in a server, there are the list of tab you will find, and one of them is services. And in this services, you will find the list of services like HTTP, DHCP, DHCP6, V6, then TFTP, DNS, like FTP and all that. So click on DNS, right? So this is by default off, right? So here we are going to on it first, right? Okay, before that, here we have to assign the IP address to this Ethernet port, right? So 192.168.1.5, right? And this port is enabled, right? Now we have to add a domain name and address, right? So before that, here we have to add one index.html file as well. So you can do it two way, right? Directly, either you can add a text file over here as well, or is the same like earlier, you can configure like FTP, and through one machine you can transfer that file from this machine to over here, right? So here I'm going to create one index.html file, right? So I have already created one code for this. Just copy it and paste it here. Control X, S. It's called index.html, right? Now in HTTP, right? So here you can see we can edit this, or even see from service itself also you can edit. So here I'm going to add my own code, right? And I'm going to click on save. Okay, so code is overwritten and this service is on now, see, right? So whenever you type IP address of the server and you are trying to access through HTTP, right? In that case, it will by default call index.html, right? So what I have done, again, I'm going to repeat is, first of all, I have enabled the DNS service, right? Then after I have configure index.html, which is by default there, but I have changed the content. I haven't done anything else from editing part point of view here. So it's by default on, and index.html file is already there, but I have added my own content inside, right? So now go to the DNS again. Now we are going to add the record, right? So record in the sense what? Name. So here you have to type www.xyz.com, right? Or whatever name you want to transfer assign here, or you can say like www.crazycloudian.com, right? Crazycloudian.com, and here IP address of this server, right? Which we have configured the default file 192.168.1.5, right? And here you can see there are different type of records, right? So I will explain this record once I've covered the real environment. But as of now, a record, it means the IP address. When you want to find out, or when you want to forward your request of your host name to the specific IP address or the specific address of the server, that is called a record. A record is nothing but value of this record is a IP address. Okay, so here just click on add. Okay, now See, these all computers right now in the same network, right? So they don't require to any kind of default gateway right now. Why? Because they are not looking to send the request out of this network, right? So here you have to add instead of that DNS address, right? Because you are looking for some mapping service of your host name to your IP address, right? So here you have to add, there is a one column or a text box here, it's called DNS address. So type 192.168.1.5. Okay, click on cancel. Let's check is it accessible or not. Go to the browser, right? This is the browser. Type Crazy Cloudian. Yes, see, welcome to the DNS hands-on tutorial, right? Same way if you want to check on any other machines, right? You just see here, you will not find anything. Why? Because we haven't added any DNS address, right? So host name unresolved. Why? Because of this computer don't know about the DNS server, right? Where to resolve this request, where to find the IP address of this domain. So in that case, just click on it, right? Go to the desktop, right? Just type the DNS address 192.168.1.5. Now you just reload this or just type it and click on it. Clear? So this is in a one network. Let's go in another network, all right, or another scenario. Here you can see now these are the two different network, right, where we have to configure the DNS address. So it is very simple. You don't need to like bother about the all the specific configuration and all that. So here I have already configured the topology earlier on a sorry, in a FTP. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on this server, right? HTTP is by default here. I want to, sorry, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to replace this with our existing code, right? Yes, sorry, right? Click on save. Yes. Now go to the DNS on this service, right? Let's find out the IP address of this server first. It's 192.168.1.5, right? So let's go to the services part. DNS name is www.crazycloudian.com. Address is this IP address. Okay, and record is again a record. Why? Because we are going to point a specific IP address of the server, right? So that's why here the value is a IP address. So I will explain later on. As I have told you, there are list of records you can configure, right? And each record have a specific value. So right now here you can see a record, it means the value or address must be in the form of IP address, right? So add it, right? Now let's go to the admin and computer, and here you can see only default gateway is configured. Right now, earlier we have configured in a one area. Let me highlight this, right, so you have a better idea, right? So this is one network, right, and this is another network, right? So when you want to send request from different network, for example, you are sending request from this computer to the DNS server, or like the server where your file is already there. So what I'm going to do is that, right, I have to add the exit point of this network, right? So which I have already discussed in my earlier uh, tutorial, right? So please refer that to understand more in more detail. So I have already added the default gateway in all the computers. Now I have to insert the DNS address only, right? So here I'm going to add DNS address is 15, right? So here also I'm going to add DNS address is 15. Okay. Now let's go inside and just type www crazycloudian.com. See, right? Query is resolved. I have sent request from this, right? Now, same thing I'm going to do from the other network, but here I have to define the DNS address as well, right? So here I have added the DNS address. I'm opening the tab www.crazycloudian.com. See, right? So it's working now. Okay. So I have just added the DNS address. See, again, I'm going to show you. The IP address I have already configured, subnet mask I have already tabbed. Once you tab it, it will automatically take, right? Default gateway, it means these addresses help you to forward a request to exit from this network, right? And enter into this network. And then after your request, forward it to the here. So I would also like to show you one simulation of the real environment, right? Let me clear this all, right? And I'm going to forward simple execution from here, right? Let me open. This is the acknowledgement. This is the response, right? See, it's correct now. Same way, you can forward your table from a packet from different network to this as well, right? Even you can edit your filter as well. If you want to see only the specific protocol over here, then you can also do that, right? And here you can see. Okay. So based on whatever requirement you have, you can do that. One more thing I would like to add over here is that even if you want to check before you test the proper DNS configuration, right? So here you can see you have to ping one of this computer 192.168.1.2, right? So ping is coming, see, right? But instead of IP address, if I want to ping with the help of name of this computer, how you can do that? So for that also you have to enter entry, as I have told you earlier, that host file is there in your machine, right? So over here as well, you have to do that. See, here I'm going to add the IP address 192.168.1.2, right? Name is a PC. Let me check the IP address of 1.2, right? And this is S1, right? The name is S1. So let's go inside S1 add. Okay, clear. Now let's ping from here or from any machine. You just see ping S1. See, reply is coming, right? Same way, if you want to ping F2, you can't see. I'm going to ping faculty computer. It will not work. See, could not find the host, right? So if you want to do that, just go inside again, type f underscore 1, right? Respected IP address, that is a 10.0.0.1. So just click on here, 10.0.0.1, right? And add it. Now type the same thing again. You will receive the responses. See. Okay, so this is nothing but DNS, right, on a packet tracer. Now I'm going to show you the real scenario. right? So here you can see in a real scenario, what we are going to do is that this is the user, right? User will type one domain name that is called www.crazycloudian.tk, right? So let me like show you the domain first here, right? So what I have done, I have taken one free domain. Let me click on my domains. That may be session expired. I have to re-log in, right? So here you can see I have logged in, and these are my domain which I have issued from this service provider or domain name service provider. And if you go inside, click on manage domain, right? uh, there are list of information you will find, right? So I have issued domain from freenoms.com, right? So here you can see when I will type this, your first request is goes to DNS service provider. So our DNS service provider is Freenom, right? And when you issue the domain name from like whatever service provider you choose, right? They will give you default NS records, right? So NS record is nothing but name server record, right? I will explain what exactly the role of name server record is, right? But I will discuss that point later on. So right now, just focus on the main execution sequence, right? So when you type www.crazycloudian.tk, your first request goes to the domain issuer or domain service provider from where you issue this domain, right? So freenom.com issue this domain, and this domain by default have NS record, right? So instead, there are two possibilities here. Some domain service provider also provide the hosting space. Hosting space, it means on this servers, it's on their server itself, you can host your application, right? And you can redirect your request to there. But here, what I have done is that I have taken the DNS service of Route 53, right? AWS Route 53 from AWS Cloud Platform, right? So once you type www.crazycloudian.tk, your request goes to this freenom.com, and freenom.com have a NS record of AWS Route 53, right? So it will, based on NS record, it will forward your request to Route 53. So here you can see on a AWS Cloud Platform, I have also created that domain, but here you can see I have created one domain over here in a Route 53, right? I have created hosted zone over here, public hosted zone, where I have hosted this domain over here. And when you host the domain, there are two record by default created over there. That is called NS record and SOA record. NS record is nothing but name server. Name server, it means whatever name you have created, right? According to that, they will give you the redirection of a list of name server record, right? And name server record will by default create, right? Name server record is another type of a special record of DNS. So NS record is used to point the name of the server where zone or domain name record is registered, right? So our domain name is registered over here, or we can say register on a specific freenom.com, right? But we are going to redirect this domain to the AWS platform because our server is hosted over here, right? What is the SOA record? SOA record is the start of authority. So is a DNS record that contain name of server that hold all the information regarding records, right? It includes authoritative information such as a server identification number, the responsible mail address, primary name server, etc. Right? So every zone or domain must have an SOA record, right? So SOA record is by default created when you create a register or host your domain to any other cloud service provider, right? So now go back to this form, right? So here you can see, so whenever, see by default, when I have registered, these four records are generated along with this SOA record as well. So what I have done, I have registered this four name record server from here to freenom.com. So just see manage name server. All right, so here you can see that for default name server is always there. See here they have mentioned use default name server from Freenom's name servers or enter your custom name server. So where you can use this second option when your domain service provider or domain name service provider is the same from where you host your website, then you can use the first option. But when your domain service provider or domain name server provider is the same, sorry, it's different, and your hosting space or hosting server is different, right? In that case, you have to choose the second option, right? So in our case, the domain name provider or domain name system provider, right? That is the Freenom, right? And our hosting service provider is AWS, right? So this Freenom redirect your request to AWS with the help of this NS record. See, these all are the AWS NS record, right? So I have added that fold record over here, right? And then after you can see your request is redirected to this, right? This is called second step. Now this NS record find out the A record of the your domain crazy cloudian which you have entered, right? And crazy cloudian already mapped with the A record over here. See, this is the IP address, and this IP addresses respond back to your computer, and your computer send request with the help of this IP address to the web server, and this web server responds back with the web page to the specific end device. Again, I'm going to repeat, right? So please see the flow here. When you type in your computer xyz.com or crazycloudian.com, your first request go to the domain names provider, right? Domain name provider have a NS record default and SOA record. NS record, there are two types. If you want to use the same service provider as a hosting service provider as well, in that case you have to use the default NS record. Either you can change according to your web application hosting platform. So here I have choose AWS. So I have created one hosted zone using Route 53 AWS Route 53 service, that is also DNS service. So here your request forwarded based on the NS record to the Route 53, right? So Route 53 have IP address which is already mapped with your domain, right? So based on this domain name, it will fetch your IP address and forward it to the your machine, and your machine send request with the help of this IP address, and you will get the response back. Now let's see the demo of this. So I have set up this. So this is the console where I have created records. See, again I'm going to for the learning purpose I'm going to remove this record, right? And I will show you how to add it. So here you can see once when you registered your domain, by default these two records are there. So once you have to create the record name over here, here you can see these are the list of record you will add, right? So here I would like to add a record, and value of this record is C, IP address, right? If you choose another record, you can see it's IPv6, right? If you choose CNAME, then it's like this, right? If you choose MX record, then it's a mail server kind of value, right? So every specific record have a different values, right? So here we have to type our IP address of our web application which is deployed over on a AWS server, right? So 3.238.14.116, right? And this is the TTL, it's called time to live. So within this time frame your request will be resolved, and there are different routing policies. This is advanced concept. I will come up with this tutorial as well, so you can understand how exactly routing policies are work. Okay, create record, and now you can see the one record is added over here, right? So now when you type this crazycloudian.com in your web browser, right? See, welcome to the DNS hands-on tutorials, right? Now one more thing, if you want to check whether this domain is redirect your request to the specific IP address, so there are server DNS mapping websites are there, right, which help you to map your IP to domain and domain to IP. So here I'm going to check my IP address of this domain, right? Check. It will take some time, but you will find respective IP address as well, right? See, yes, so 3.238.14.11 right? Everywhere you can see, right? And apart from that, the some IP addresses that is coming because of I have used the cloud platform, and this server is specifically in a Northern Virginia region, right? So based on that, some mappings are coming, right? So this is what exactly called DNS mapping, right? So again, I'm repeat, when you type xyz.com, your first request go to the DNS server. DNS server, based on your name and name server record, it will forward your request to NS server, and name server uh, for forward it your IP address, or maybe according to your host name, it will fetch the IP address and forward it to the client. Okay, so this is all about we can say DNS. Now I would like to discuss about the different records. Let's see the different type of records. A record, which I have already discussed, right? So value of this record is nothing but your IPv4 address, right? Triple A is nothing but your, we can say, IPv6 value of this record. Alias or CNAME is nothing but mapping of host name into another host name. So CNAME is used to create, or we can say alias is used to create for existing A record, create an existing A record of CNAME or alias, right? So for example, if you want to map xyz.com with abc.xyz.com, then you can use this, right? So it is possible to create CNAME record in a both forward and reverse lookup zone too, right? So alias and CNAME, here you can see we can configure it, right? Now MX record. So MX record is also you can configure for the mail exchanger, right? So MX record is used specifically for purpose of sending email. MX record existence indicating the domain is willing to receive email, right? So for example, when a mail is about to be sent to recipient name, for example, admin@xyz.com, the sender will then then try to send or find it any MX record exists in a parent domain like @xyz.com. Okay. Now NS record, which I have already told you, it's called name server record. It is a one type of special record which is having the name of the servers where zones and domains or records are registered, right? And SO is nothing but start of authority record, and is a DNS record that contains the name of server that hold all the informations regarding records, right? So this is all about DNS. Okay, thank you so much.